The story of the Titanic is one of the most famous and haunting tragedies of the 20th century. It is a tale of ambition, pride, human error, and ultimate disaster, set against the backdrop of the early age of modern technology. On the night of April 14, 1912, the so-called Unsinkable ship struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic, and by the early hours of April 15th, more than 1,500 people had lost their lives. To understand why this catastrophe captured the imagination of the world, we must go back to the very beginning, to the conception, the construction, and the fateful voyage of the most luxurious ocean liner ever built. The Titanic was the brainchild of the White Star Line, a British shipping company determined to dominate the transatlantic passenger trade. Competing with German liners known for speed and efficiency, White Star sought another advantage: size and luxury. Their plan was to create ships that would not simply cross the ocean but embody comfort, status, and modernity. From this vision came the Olympic-class trio: the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. Of them, the Titanic would become a name etched forever in history. Construction began in 1909 at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. Over 3,000 workers labored for 2 years to build a vessel 269 meters long and 28 meters wide, displacing 46,000 tons. She could carry more than 2,200 people, and her interiors rivaled the best hotels in Europe. Marble staircases, gilded dining rooms, smoking lounges, and electric elevators. For the elite, private suites with promenades and Turkish baths turned the ship into a floating palace. Yet Titanic was not only for the rich. Thousands of immigrants filled the lower decks, investing their hopes for a better life in America. This diversity made Titanic a floating mirror of Edwardian society. Her safety systems were considered state-of-the-art. 16 watertight compartments, reinforced bulkheads, and electropumps seemed to guarantee resilience. Designers boasted that even if 2, or possibly 4, compartments flooded, Titanic would remain afloat. Newspapers labeled her unsinkable. But one critical flaw went unnoticed: the lifeboats. Titanic carried only 20, enough for barely half of those aboard. Regulations had not kept pace with ship sizes, and most saw lifeboats as unnecessary, merely a way to ferry passengers to rescuers, not to save everyone on board. From the very start, Titanic's voyage was shadowed by danger. In Southampton, as the ship departed, her massive displacement nearly pulled another vessel, the New York, from its moorings, a near collision avoided at the last moment. Few realized this was an ominous sign of things to come. Another hidden threat lay deep within the ship: a fire in one of the coal bunkers, discovered before sailing but kept secret from passengers. Fires in coal storage were not uncommon, but this one was serious. Stokers worked tirelessly to control it, shoveling burning coal into furnaces to keep flames from spreading. Some later speculated that prolonged heat weakened the steel bulkhead in that compartment, precisely where the iceberg would strike. The men who fought the fire endured exhausting, suffocating conditions, sacrificing their health, and some even their sanity. Their efforts kept the ship running, but it was a hidden flaw in the voyage from day one. On April 10, 1912, Titanic departed Southampton, stopping in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, before heading into the Atlantic. On board were some of the wealthiest individuals of the era: John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus and his wife Ida, and Margaret Molly Brown, alongside hundreds of families in third class. Altogether, 2,224 souls began the crossing. The first days were idyllic. The sea was calm, the weather clear, and Titanic sailed at about 22 knots, just below her maximum speed. Yet warnings of danger accumulated. Nearby ships sent multiple wireless messages about drifting ice. The Mesaba warned of heavy pack ice and large icebergs. The Californian, only about 20 miles away, reported being trapped in an ice field. But Titanic's wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, were overwhelmed with personal telegrams for passengers. The Californian's final urgent message was cut off by Phillips with a sharp reply, "Shut up, I am busy." That dismissal sealed Titanic's isolation. Late on April 14th, the Atlantic was eerily still, with no moon and no waves to break against hidden icebergs. At 11:40 p.m., lookout Frederick Fleet spotted a massive dark shape directly ahead. He rang the bell 3 times and called the bridge, "Iceberg right ahead." First Officer William Murdoch ordered hard to port, and engines reversed. But the ship's momentum was too great. The iceberg scraped along 90 meters of hull, puncturing plates and popping rivets. 5 compartments flooded instantly, one more than the ship could survive. Titanic was doomed. Inside, few understood the danger. The collision was mild. Many passengers barely felt it. Designer Thomas Andrews, however, inspected the damage and delivered his verdict to Captain Smith. The ship would sink within 2 hours. Orders went out to prepare lifeboats, but the crew was untrained and confusion reigned. Lifeboats were lowered half empty. Boat number 7 left with only 28 people, though it could carry 65. Many passengers refused to board, believing it's safer to stay on the brightly lit liner than risk the freezing sea. Below deck, stokers and engineers continued their grim work, feeding coal to boilers and running pumps even as water flooded in. Their sacrifice kept lights burning and wireless signals alive until the final moments. One fireman, trampled during the evacuation, had worked himself to collapse fighting the bunker fire earlier in the voyage. Their stories rarely made headlines, but without them, no one would have survived. As the evacuation unfolded, humanity revealed both its nobility and cruelty. Guggenheim dressed in his best clothes, declaring he would go down a gentleman. Isidore and Ida Strauss refused to be separated. Ida gave her seat to a maid and chose to die with her husband. Meanwhile, some men pushed their way into boats, ignoring the call for women and children first. In third class, chaos was worse. Locked gates, confusing corridors, and language barriers kept many from reaching the deck. Whole families were trapped below. At 2:18 a.m., Titanic's lights flickered out. The stern rose, and with a groan of metal, the ship broke in two. By 2:20 a.m., she disappeared beneath the waves. Over 1,500 people were left in the water, their cries piercing the night. Most froze to death within minutes. Only 705 survived, later rescued by the Carpathia. And what the Californian, so close by? Her wireless operator had gone to bed, and the crew ignored rockets seen in the night sky, dismissing them as company signals. Only at dawn did they learn the truth. The world would never forgive such negligence. The sinking reshaped maritime law. Lifeboats for all became mandatory. 24-hour wireless operation was enforced. The International Ice Patrol was created. Titanic's loss forced progress bought with blood. Yet myths endure. Some claim Titanic's speed was reckless, yet she was not running at her maximum. The greatest myth, of course, is the belief she was unsinkable, a phrase never used officially by White Star, but embraced by newspapers and public imagination. In 1985, her wreck was discovered 2.5 miles beneath the Atlantic. Explorers found haunting scenes, chandeliers intact, china cups resting on the seabed, shoes lying where bodies had decayed. Later dives recovered jewelry, watches, coins, and even unopened bottles of champagne. Each artifact is a frozen echo of that night. Titanic's legacy is not just a story of a ship, but of human arrogance, sacrifice, and the fragility of life. A floating palace became a graveyard, and in her sinking, the modern world was reminded that no triumph of technology can overcome nature. That night, 1,500 souls paid with their lives to teach a lesson humanity must never forget. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and comment to join the journey through history. See you in the next video.